another $2,000 a year. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm not paying this because there is no law on the British statute book that empowers you to treat me in this way. And so they went away, and again they looked up and shuffled around, and there wasn't a law that allowed them to treat people in this way. But they've done it all over Scotland, and the only people who said no were us.
You know, a lot of this is psychological, too, as they have these people groping you in airports in the United States as if you're some kind of a terrorist. Now, a lot of these things you're describing to me right now, really, these are just the psychological things that they do to people to try to beat them down, to try to get them to understand you are going to be under our thumb and our control. This is a police state, and you must do as we say. You stated recently, we are in the last seconds before freedom dies. What is the hope of defeating these communists?
It is this, that in the end, freedom is in the soul of the human individual. We will not allow our freedom to be taken away. There are too many people like me and like you who are not prepared to give our freedom up, and are not prepared to be trampled on by these Nazis, these fascists, these communists, whatever word you like to use for them. We're not going to let it happen. And because freedom still beats strong in our breast, they will not get away with taking our freedom from us, because we will find ways of getting it back. Just as we're now increasingly doing in Britain. If anyone comes to us, we've got to have a microchip in our rubbish bin, we're going to tell them, no, you can't. Just as we've told these people who want to test our water supply, no, you can't. Go away. And they go away, because in the end, they know that if they have to take everyone to court every time they say no, then that will be that. Give you another little vignette, just to show you what life is like now in Britain. This is a vignette about the unspeakable BBC, as it is now known by almost everybody in Britain. The unspeakable BBC rang me up 10 days ago, and they said, we'd like you to come on the politics show, which is a very important show on a Sunday morning on the BBC. It's networked right across Britain. Big audience. And they said, we'd like you to go head-to-head in debate with the leader of the Green Party about global warming. I said, I would be delighted to do that. And so everything was agreed, and an hour later they rang back and they said, we're going to have to withdraw our invitation. I said, why? Have I got some kind of intellectual BO? I mean, what's the problem? And they said, oh no. They said, the fact is, the moment we told the leader of the Greens that you were coming to debate with her, she said that if that happened, she wouldn't come. So I said, fine, then you've told her she's not coming because she's not willing to debate. She's a politician, after all. She's a member of the European Parliament. She knows how to debate, not as though she can cut and run, saying she's never done that sort of thing before. And they said, oh, well, no, you see, the thing is that she agrees with the BBC's point of view on climate change, so we're going to have her and not you. And I said, well, no, you must realise this is totally unacceptable as a reason for not inviting me onto the programme. Of course, you should tell her to go away. And even if I do disagree with the BBC's view on climate change, it is me that you should have on, because I'm willing to debate and she's not. And they said, no, we can't do that, you see, because although she is already a member of the European Parliament, she's going to stand as a member of Parliament in Kent, which is where the programme is being shown, and we want to help her. We want to give her the airtime.
Well, there you go.
That's what they actually said to me. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. No attempt at impartiality, no attempt at being fair. And when you get, a national public broadcaster behaving like that, what I'm going to do about it is we have an extraordinary system in the United Kingdom, which is just unthinkable anywhere else in the world. We have to pay $300 a year to the government for the privilege of having the BBC that none of us want. You have to pay $300. It's called a license fee.
That's brilliant. You have to fund their propaganda.
We have to fund the very propaganda, and of course they won't let me on the air to give the other side of the story. So, what I am going to do when I get back from Copenhagen, I'm going to write to the chairman of the BBC, Sir Michael Lyons, who is a lazy bureaucrat, and I'm going to say to him, right, mate, I'm not paying any more. I'm not joining anymore, and if you want to prosecute me, I'll see you in court, and I'll tell the story of how the BBC treats people. It invites them on a programme and then says, oh no, you can't come because we want to give the leader of the Greens a clear field. I mean, that's what they do, and I think people need to know about it. And so I'm going to say, I will not pay. And it's not due to be paid, it's not due to be paid until next September, but after that, they'll come after me, And I'll say, no, I'm not paying, and we'll see what happens then. And gradually, just by saying we won't any longer fund these people who do, I think we'll win our freedom back. Another thing we're looking at in the Highlands of Scotland, and this is spreading like wildfire, is the idea of becoming independent, not from Britain, which of course enormously subsidises Scotland, but from the European Union and from the rest of Scotland. Because the rest of Scotland is run by effectively a socialist administration, which doesn't look after our interests. They've just taken away our village doctor after hours in the evenings, and if you get a heart attack, after 5 o'clock in the evening, you die, because there's nobody there to put you right again. If you get meningitis that can't be diagnosed by anyone except a doctor, you die. In the old days, there was always, for 100 years, we've had a doctor living in that village who would turn out at a moment's notice if somebody was ill in the neighbourhood. Not anymore. So what we're getting is a withdrawal of the basic services that we pay for in our taxes, yet an increase in taxes and an increase in this sinister state regulation in every direction, the microchips in the bins, the people turning up to test our water supply, the people to tell us to fill in our Intrastat forms. A friend of mine had a really ludicrous one the other day, and this you will not believe, but it's absolutely true. He was an enthusiast for the European Union. He was a banker in London. He said, oh, but the European Union's wonderful. And I said, no, it isn't. It's the dead hand of the bureaucratic centralist fascist state. He said, well, that's a bit rich. That's a bit strong. And he didn't really agree with me until he took his horses out hunting one day and came back and was loading his 2 horses into the horse box. And to stop them fighting each other, one faces one way and one faces the other. Most horse owners, if they're putting 2 horses in one horse box, that's what they do. But there was a bureaucrat with a clipboard who'd come over from Brussels, and he said, no, you've got to load your horses so they both face the same way. And so my friend said, but why? Everybody knows that's a stupid thing to do. And so the bureaucrat said, because we've got a new regulation coming out next week that says you have to. So my friend, quick as a flash, said, you mean you're here to tell me that I have to comply with a regulation that hasn't yet even been brought into force? So the bureaucrat looked a bit shamefaced. And my friend said, right, I'll tell you what's going to happen now. I'm going to ring Monckton, and I'm going to tell him what you've just done. So he rang me and he said, now I understand why you don't want the EU. He said, now I've seen it. I've got the point because it's happened to me. And of course, what's happened all over the country is you've got these bureaucrats who are, although they're British bureaucrats, they're effectively acting on behalf of the EU. That's the clever thing about how the EU is structured. It turns the bureaucrats of national civil service into servants of the dismal empire of Brussels, so that they act directly for them. So that poor guy with his eggs, for instance, up in Paisley Bridge, he was bullied by these people with the help of course, the local police sergeant, local bureaucrats helping out. And all of this is a sort of constant bullying. And every time one more person is subjected to this bullying, he says to himself, right, now I hate the EU too. And of course, the longer the EU continues on, the more all of its citizens hate it. I was talking to, I won't say which, but the leader of one of Europe's countries just recently. And he was saying that when he became president of the EU, which was on a 6-month rotating presidency, and it was sort of bugging his turn by alphabetical order, and his country was next. So he became president for 6 months of the EU. The day before he became president, half a dozen bureaucrats including a couple of commissars, turned up at the presidential palace, and they said, right, during your presidency of the EU, you will do the following. And so he said to them, gentlemen, that square object just behind you is the door. Put yourselves on the other side of it and shut it, and do not come back here again. I have not been spoken to like that since the communists were ejected from my country 20 years ago. Now get out. And thank goodness he was one who had seen how ghastly this new dictatorship is and had decided to fight it. And he threw them out, and he gave them hell for 6 months while he was president of Europe. But there are very few politicians who now dare to stand up to these people.
Let me stop you right there, Lord Monckton.
Yeah.
That's my next question for you, and I asked this of Nigel. You know, you and I talk about this purposeful deindustrialization, which has been going on for quite some time.
Yeah.
And we talk about how this has been planned that it's been planned for decades. But eventually, right, that resistors will disappear if they're successful and be disposed of humanely. There will be no martyrs this time. In that environment, why have you chosen to put this target on your back, knowing the danger that puts you in, Lord Monckton? Why are you doing this?
Well, I think it's very flattering of you to say that I'm somehow being terribly brave. No, I mean, I think most people would say it's lunatic rather than brave, because here am I, if you like, fighting now not on one but on